Lesson 83 talks about coin problems. These can also be called value problems. Later in our textbook, it might be calling them value problems, but for now we'll go with coin problems. And they're like story problems, and I really enjoy these problems. For example, it'll be somebody will say, Jack has 28 coins, and these coins are all either a nickel or a dime. The other part of the information that they give us, it says that the value of these coins is $1.95. And they want to know how many dimes do we have and how many nickels do we have. So the way we go about solving this problem is we need to come up with two equations. Our first equation is going to talk just about the number of coins. And that one's pretty easy. We know there's 28 coins. So the number of dimes plus the number of nickels equals 28. Now we're going to talk about the value of those coins and come up with another equation. So first what we're going to do is it is easier to work with these if we get rid of the decimal point. So instead of talking about it as being $1.95, we're going to say that it's 195 cents. That's going to make our problem easier to work with because we're getting rid of the decimal point. And you guys all know that 195 cents is the same as $1.95. So we need to know what is the value of the dimes that we have. Well, the value of the dimes would be, for every dime, it would be worth 10 cents. So we want to write 10D. So if somebody has 2 dimes, 2 times 10 is 20. It's worth 20 cents. 3 dimes would be worth 30 cents, and so on. So the value of the dimes here is 10 times D. What would the value of the nickels be? The value of the nickels would be 5 times N, because nickels are worth 5 cents. And what does our problem say our total value is? The total value is 195 cents. So now we have two equations. We have one that expresses the number of coins and one that talks about the value of the coins. Just a little note, you could have written that a dime was 10 cents like that with a decimal point, and a nickel is 5 cents with a decimal point, giving us $1.95. That equation does work, but I prefer to work without the decimals. I think it's less confusing, so I prefer to use the cents form. So just to make sure you can't mix them though. You couldn't say that 10D plus 5N would equal $1.95 because then you would be mixing cents and dollars, which doesn't make sense. Okay, so when you have both the equations, now we can just solve for one of them and put that variable into the other equation to find our answer. So we're going to solve here for the number of dimes. So dimes, to get dimes by itself, we have to subtract n from each side, which gives us 28 minus n. Now in this equation, wherever we see a d, we can substitute it for 28 minus n, giving us only n's in this equation. And if you only have one variable in an equation, then you can find out the answer to it. So 10 times d becomes 10 times, we're putting 28 minus n in for d. 28 minus n. Now we're going to add the 5n and set that equal to 195. We'll do the distributive property, which gives us 280 minus 10n. Be careful to watch those signs. Plus 5n equals 195. Minus 5 or 10n plus 5n gives us negative 5n. So we have 280 minus 5n equals 195. Now I want to get the n's on this side so they're no longer negative, and I want to move this over to this side. So first we'll add 5n to each side, which gives us 280 equals 195 plus 5n. Subtracting 195 from each side gives us 85. Is that right? Yeah, 85 on this side, and that's equal to 5n on this side. Now we need to divide each side by 5, which is going to tell us that the number of nickels equals 17. Okay, so now we know we have 17 nickels. And we put that back into this equation. If we have 17 nickels, then we must have 11 dimes. And then we can check that to see 11 dimes would be $1.10, right? And 17 nickels would be 85 cents. And when you add those two together, you get $1.95, which is what they told us our value was going to be. So the answer to this problem is there's 17 nickels and 11 dimes. So we're going to do one more just so that you get the hang of it. You always have to come up with two equations, one that represents the value of the coins and one that represents the number. So in this case, we're going to say that Bob has 22 coins. They're going to be nickels and dimes again. And the value is $1.35. 22 coins whose value is $1.35. So we want to do nickels plus dimes equals 22. That's our equation that tells us the number. We also need to come up with an equation that gives us the value. Now remember, I like to change it from dollars to cents. It's easier to work with. So $1.35 becomes 135 cents. Once we change that, the value of nickels, they're 5 cents for every nickel, so 5N, 10 cents for every dime, plus 10D, and the value is 135. And now that we have the two equations, we can solve this top one for N. Now N would equal 22 minus D. Now, every place we see N in this equation, we're going to replace it with 22 minus D. Use your parentheses so that you remember to do the distributive property and get the entire correct answer. If you don't use the parentheses, some students would just multiply 5 by 22 and then subtract D, and that's not correct. We need to distribute the 5 to the 22 and the D. So we're going to finish off this problem. We have 5 times 22, which is 110, minus 5D plus 10D equals 135. Now we're going to simplify this. Negative 5D plus 10D is 5D. We're going to subtract 110 from both sides, which gives us 25 over here. Divide each side by 5, which tells us that the number of dimes equals 5. If we have 5 dimes, then we know that the number of nickels must be 17, because 17 plus 5 equals 22. So that would be our answer. It's always good to check it to see if it works. 10 times 5 would be 50 cents for the nickels, and 17 times 5 gives us 85 cents for the, oh, let's see, 10 times D, that's 50 cents for the dimes and 85 cents for the nickels, which gives us a total of 135 cents, which works out. Good luck with those.